now and following the breaking news from D.C. District Judge James Boasberg that he's found probable cause to hold the Trump administration in contempt over deportation flights to El Salvador. I want to bring in Meredith McGraw, White House reporter for the Wall Street Journal, and Susan Page, Washington bureau chief for USA Today. Susan, just off the top, your reaction to the judge taking this step?
Hey, this is a real showdown. This goes further than any judge has gone so far in these many, many cases we've seen filed over President Trump's actions during his opening months in office. This is not unprecedented. There was a case during the first Trump administration where the education secretary was found in contempt and fined $100,000. But this definitely escalates the battle between the White House and the courts over how far the president can go in deporting immigrants.
And Meredith, this news comes as we're starting to see this issue boil up into outrage at the town hall level. Lawmakers home on recess this week, including Chuck Grassley of Iowa, who encountered this scene at one of his town halls. Watch.
Are you going to bring that guy back from El Salvador? Why not?
Well, because that's not a power of Congress.
Supreme Court said to bring him back.
Yeah, but can they do?
He's defying the Constitution.
Trump don't care.
Meredith, you and I have covered a lot of town halls in Iowa. Iowans never shy to speak their mind, and clearly that's true there. But what do you make of the fact that this is the reception that the senior senator from Iowa is getting?
Well, we haven't seen Republicans actually hold that many town halls. Last month, the NRCC director had cautioned Republicans against holding these town halls because we'd seen eruptions flare up among constituents and also from protesters who are showing up at these events. But what we're seeing is real frustration from some of Grassley's constituents there. And we've heard questions and we've seen results in polling, too, that some Republicans might be happy with what Trump and his administration had planned to do, but disagree with them going beyond the bounds of the law to get that done.
Yeah, certainly that's one of the lines that we've heard from some voters saying, yeah, I did vote for tougher immigration. I just didn't think that it would look like this. But Susan, it feels a little bit like we've seen this film before, right? Are there some Tea Party-esque warning signs here for Republicans after town halls like that have been sustained, frankly, over the course of the last few months?
One of the things we've learned is that sometimes town halls are a leading indicator of what voters are thinking. And so it's when polling may not be very clear, when people in Washington may not be sure what voters are thinking about. Members of Congress who actually go out and meet with their constituents are sometimes surprised by the issues that engage them. And just on the Grassley point, first of all, kudos to Grassley for holding town halls. Yes. He got some blowback on Social Security. You'd expect that in Iowa. But for this crowd of his in Iowa, a red state, to stand up basically for the Supreme Court and for the Salvadoran migrant who was mistakenly returned to a mega prison there, that is interesting to me. That means this may be striking a chord to Americans that it's not quite fair what happened to him, and that they want to make sure that institutions of government respect one another, including the administration respecting the judgment and the power of the courts, Allie.
Yeah, the location of where that pushback was happening struck me too, Susan. But Meredith, are administration officials or Republican campaign sources you're talking to concerned yet about possible political impacts coming down the road? There's still a long ways to go until the midterms, but not that long.
It's certainly something that I think the administration and Republicans across the board are paying attention to. And even though the midterms are a long ways off, as you know, the race to get organized for them is already on. And, we saw just recently how President Trump asked Elise Stefanik, the congresswoman from New York, to actually go back to Congress and not be the UN ambassador because the margins in the House are just so tight. And the president and the people around him know that if they want to be able to enact some of these sweeping legislation that they've proposed, that they're going to have to work with really close margins, and they can't afford to lose any seats, or he's going to be a lame duck pretty soon.
Meredith,